Today is the day. We are heading out to Paris for the weekend to run the marathon. I have spent the last 16 weeks training for this and telling people that I'm training for the marathon, and now I have to go and actually run it. I feel pretty good for it, I have to say. I feel a lot better than I did going into my prior 2 marathons where I had no training basically. But this time around we have put a shift in, so I'm excited to see what we can do. Excited to get over to Paris and do the run itself. 42 kilometers around the streets of Paris, 50,000 runners. It should be a mint experience. Can we talk about my barber and how he's gone and left a gaping hole in my fringe? Come on, man. Marathon weekend, I wanted to look good. Anyway, as you can probably see, the room is a mess at the minute. I'm in the middle of packing, so I'm going to show you what race day kit I've got. I'm going to pack my bags and then we are going to get to the airport because we've got a flight to catch to Paris Orly Airport, so get to it. So I'm going to take a couple of options, but I think we are going to run in the Soar running t-shirt, super lightweight, really nice material. These Nike half pants, I've done all my long runs in these, really comfortable again. I've never had any issues with them. I'm going to go with the New Balance arm sleeves that I wore in New York, the Oakley eye jackets that are on my head, and after much deliberation, the footwear of choice is going to be the Adidas Pro 3s. The watch I'm using is the Garmin Forerunner 965, and I'll come on to this in a bit, but that is going to play a vital part in helping me pace the marathon properly. And then I'm also going to wear the Garmin HRM Pro heart rate monitor just because I'm intrigued to see what my heart rate does, and I want to use it as a bit of a gauge to make sure I'm not going too hard and I don't blow up later on in the marathon. Don't want to be going into zone 5 in the first 10k, you know. Touchdown in Paris. Journey over from Manchester was pretty seamless, to be fair, but getting a taxi from the airport was not. However, I have just made it to the hotel, picked up a little baguette and a croissant en route. GCSE French coming in clutch. Bonjour, un croissant et one of the baguettes, please. And then I nipped to the local supermarché to pick up some BTEC paprika Pringles, grape Fanta and some water. Plan for the rest of the day is to relax a little bit, eat some baguettes, and then we are going out to an Italian restaurant for dinner later on to begin the carb load. Just back from dinner, it was nice. Got to say, I'm struggling to communicate with the French people, though. I ordered what I thought was a margarita pizza, but what came was just a pizza without any tomato sauce, so basically just cheese on toast, but carbs are carbs, so we'll take it. And I also like, when you come to places like this, they serve just like complimentary bread on the table, so you've always got some carbs there to consume, which is perfect for marathon weekend. And after that we went to a gelato place and got this like bougie ice cream where they made it look like rose petals and stuff. I got coffee and caramel combo. Some good stuff. Anyway, it's 10:30 in the evening now. I'm going to hit the hay because we are up tomorrow for Shakeout run. I think we're just doing 5k around the streets of Paris, so see you then. Currently Saturday morning now, 7 o'clock. We are literally one day out now from the marathon. This time tomorrow I'll be on my way to the start line. Don't feel nervous as such, but I do have that sense of impending doom just because I know how grim the last 10 kilometers are going to be, but what can you do? I've just been down for some breakfast. We were about to head out on a shakeout run, a little 5 kilometers through the streets of Paris with RUNNA and sports tours. Also, weather forecast is saying it's going to be 26 degrees later here in Paris. That is too hot for me. I'm hoping it cools down by tomorrow. I think it will do. It's about 10-12 degrees forecast tomorrow morning, which is when we're going to be racing, so I think that'll be all right. But 26 degrees, that's the hottest I've experienced in months. But we're staying hydrated, electrolytes on tap. That's the aim for the day. We are also heading to the Expo to collect our bibs and stuff after the shakeout run, so let's see how we go. Should be a good day. Paris Marathon Expo, mic'd up edition. Let's go. This is my first time vlogging in public. I feel like an absolute fool, but when in Paris. Oh man, this is going to be so busy. Bonjour. Just know this is really paining me to talk to the camera like this. Asics are the main sponsor of the marathon, so they've got that new Metaspeed shoe out that looks really decent, to be fair. I'd like to try it. I think they're one of the lightest carbon shoes on the market, other than mad Adidas ones that are made for one race. The Garmin squad. Garmin are the official time sponsors as well. And on the topic of Garmin, it might be worth talking about my pacing strategy for tomorrow, because I'm going to be using my Garmin Forerunner 965 to help pace me around using one of their features called Pace Pro that I'll explain in a minute. So my goals for the race, the main thing I want is a 3-hour 45-minute marathon. I would love to get that, but failing that, anything with 4 hours I will take. But to help me get round in 3 hours 45, I'm going to be using the Garmin Pace Pro feature. I'll show you what it's all about, but it kind of does what it says on the tin. You create a pacing strategy in the Garmin Connect app, and then it will help you execute that strategy on your watch during the race via one of the interfaces. So head to the Connect app, that's where I'm going to be creating mine. Head to training and planning, and then you'll see Pace Pro pacing strategies there. I'm going to create my Pace Pro strategy here. The cool thing about this is you can input specific course routes. If you can download the GPX for it, you can input that into the pacing strategy, and it'll take into account things like elevation in the hills, etc. So I downloaded the Marathon de Paris GPX route. Stick in your goal time, 3 hours 45 minutes, and it'll spit out the goal pace that you need to achieve per kilometre to hit that goal time. Go on to the next page, and then this is where you can start to refine the approach. So pacing strategy, do I want to positive or negative split it? Well, I'd love to negative split a marathon, but I don't think that's in my locker. So I'm going to go slightly more towards a positive split, because I think I'm just going to start dropping off after about the 25k mark. Uphill effort now, when I'm going up the hills, I want it to be slightly easier, and then I'll make up for that on the downhills. And then yeah, here you can see the different split times per kilometre based on all this input that you've done. So some kilometres I'm doing quicker, some kilometres where there's elevation I'm going to be doing slightly slower. Export it to your Garmin, and it'll be there ready for you to use on race day. So that's how I'm planning on pacing it tomorrow. Whether that comes to fruition, who knows, only time will tell, but I am going to try and enjoy myself as well. The route looks really beautiful. You go in past all the main attractions, the Eiffel Tower, you start at the Champs-Élysées, you see the Arc de Triomphe, Notre Dame, literally everything that you would come to see in Paris. So I'm going to try not to get too bogged down in the time, even though I am going for a time. It's tough trying to find the balance, I think, between getting too stressed about your pacing but then also soaking it up, because chances are I might not get the opportunity to do the Paris Marathon again, so got to make the most of it when these things come up. At the end of the day, no one really cares about your pace as much as you do, so no need to stress about it that much. It ain't that deep, especially if you're not an Olympian. Right, Expo's out the way now, all sorted. Time to stock up on some carbs. I found myself a local French place called Subway, I think is how you say it over here. Let's get this down, and then I'm going to go and have a mooch around for a bit. Just back from dinner, we hit up an Italian again. I went for the spaghetti carbonara. It is a bit of me, that dish. They had the infinite bread glitch. Again, serving bread for days. It's just good stuff. And now for the rest of the evening, I'm going to be sipping on this carb mix and relaxing. I feel pretty good for it, to be honest. I do still have that little bit of like impending doom in the back of my mind, but I think that'll go as soon as I just start running. It's more like the anticipation and the build up, getting there, standing there on the start line, waiting to get off that I think I'm a bit nervous for. My breakfast and all my kit is laid out, ready to go. I've actually had a bit of a change of heart on my kit. I've switched up a few things that I'll show you tomorrow. Basically, I'm just going to go with shorts and a vest instead. Jade is on her way over as well. She's getting here in a couple of hours. My mum and dad are here. They're going to be watching tomorrow. Hopefully I'll see them a couple of times, or at least once or twice, and then at the finish line they can carry me home. Big day ahead tomorrow, and I feel good. I'm excited for it. See you in the morning.
I can't put my phone down.
Race day. Now, where do I even start with this one? Well, I set my alarm for 5:30. We were up bright and early. Went downstairs to the hotel breakfast to shovel some porridge down my throat. I wasn't hungry in the slightest. I never am on the morning of race day for some reason. Didn't sleep the best either. Got a couple of hours, but I always find when I'm out of routine, staying in hotels and stuff and not in my own bed, I never seem to settle into my sleep. And after breakfast, we hopped on the metro to make our way over to the Champs-Élysées, or however you pronounce it, because that is where the race starts, just at the foot of the Arc de Triomphe. Pretty epic start, I have to say. Made my way over to my respective pen. And yeah, the nerves just accumulated and accumulated. I think it was due to the expectation that I had on this race because I'd actually put down a proper training block. There was expectation compared to the prior marathons where I was just sort of showing up, enjoy it and get round. This time I had that pace goal in mind. So after fidgeting around for about half an hour in the pen, it was finally time to kick off and get things underway. Before I get into the run itself, a little bit about the route. Now, not a massive fan of Paris, to be honest with you, but the route was very nice. It was a pretty good sightseeing tour. You got to run throughout the whole city and in the process see the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre, Arc de Triomphe, the Champs-Élysées, as I said, and a few other tourist hotspots. Pretty decent. And in terms of the elevation profile, my Garmin clocked 170 meters of elevation. It was quite undulating, nothing too bad, no really steep hills or really steep downhills, but it was notably sort of up and down. And another thing worth noting was about 20%, I believe, of the route is on cobbles. Nothing too bad, not super uneven cobbles, but they did require a little more attention than flat tarmac, just something to note, but I didn't personally find them too bad. Anyway, back to the race. Now, I spent the Saturday night looking at the splits that my Pace Pro strategy had spat out as part of my 3:45 target that I originally had, and I came to the conclusion that they were too optimistic. I just didn't think that I had it in the locker to be running at them paces, especially towards the back end. Even though I'd set it to positive split, I just didn't think I had that in the locker. So switched the goalpost a little, is what it is. Just didn't want that extra stress, so I changed it to a 3:50 goal now. So that became the A goal, a 3:50 marathon, which meant throughout the race I had to average a pace of 5 minutes and 27 per kilometre, but I wasn't too stressed about that because I had my Garmin set up on the Pace Pro display, which was telling me the speed I needed to go for every single kilometre.
Just gone through the 6k mark, taking it 1 kilometre at a time. The Pace Pro is telling me what I need to hit for each K. As you can see there.
The display looks like this. It tells you the target pace for that kilometre you are in, pace you are currently running, how far left of that kilometre there is to run, and then how far ahead or behind you are of your overall target time, which was infinitely useful because it completely eradicates the burden of thought when it comes to calculating how far ahead or behind you are of your pace. So I kept it on that screen the entire way round. I didn't change it once. All I was focused on was hitting the pace that the watch was telling me to hit for each single kilometre. But once we'd finally got underway, the first few kilometres felt quite uncomfortable, I have to say, alarmingly uncomfortable. Seems to be a common theme with all the runs that I do. The first couple of kilometres just don't feel great and then I'll eventually settle into it. So I knew it would pass. It was just quite overwhelming thinking in the first 2 kilometres that I wasn't feeling good. And I had another 40 to go. Thought this could be a long day, but eventually I found myself settling into a rhythm after about 5 or 6k. Started to feel the level of comfort you wanted to feel early on in the marathon. We were pinging off sort of 5:15, 5:20k's and we came through the 10 kilometre mark in 52 minutes and 38 seconds, which was a bit ahead of schedule, so we'd banked some time at this point, which was good. Fueling wise, I had 6 gels with me. I used the OTE ones and I had 3 of their standard gels and 3 of their super gels, and I was alternating between the 2 every 40 minutes. And I'd set up a nutrition alert every 40 minutes to remind me to do it, which again just helps eradicate the burden of thought when it comes to fueling. It just makes it a lot easier. Pro tip as well when it comes to consuming your gels, especially if you are prone to stomach issues, instead of gulping it down in one go, sip on it. What I mean by that is take the top off, run with it in your hand for a bit, take a sip, run with it for a bit, take a sip over the span of like a kilometre or so, and it will sit on your stomach immensely better than if you just chug it in one go. That approach worked a charm for me out there. I had no stomach issues. I feel like I absolutely nailed the fueling strategy. I couldn't have done anything better in that department.
Coming past halfway, still alive.
Yes, mate, we're nearly there. Halfway there.
Went through the half in 1 hour and 52 minutes. I felt strong, I felt comfortable. I found myself in a sort of flow state, if you will, where time was passing really quickly. And all I was focused on was hitting the pace that I needed to hit in the kilometre I was in. My legs had started to fatigue a little bit at that point, but the main thing I was concerned about was I'd just started to feel chafing in between my thighs and where the sun doesn't shine. Now, I've never had any issues with chafing in them particular areas. They weren't giving out any Vaseline or anything like that at the aid stations, and Lord above, it is hard to stop thinking about it when you notice it's there. So I just had to strap in and deal with it. It is what it is. Worse things have happened in the marathon. It just wasn't nice, and it still isn't nice. So by the 26k mark, I was still feeling good. I had managed to see my parents who had come out to support, and Jade as well, twice at that point. Crowds were good. There was a lot of crowds in the areas where it mattered, a lot of quiet areas as well. I thought, considering that it was the third biggest marathon in terms of participants, I did think the crowds would be a bit busier, but it was still good atmosphere, especially where it mattered towards the back end of the race when you're sort of running through the city in the main area. Now the race really started for me around the 32k mark. This was where my legs started to properly feel it, and in my last marathons it was the place where I began to completely capitulate. In Valencia and New York, by this point I'd found myself in this horrible pit of despair, kind of walking and running a little bit and walking some more because every step just hurt. But this time around it was more just fatigue was kicking in. I was still able to hold my pace, but in the next few kilometers I would notice it did start to drop off.
Falling behind a bit. We'll see how long we can hang on for. Sub 4 should be on.
But thankfully I'd banked a bit of time at this point and I was ahead of the 350 goal. And as I mentioned earlier, we had planned to run a positive split, which if you're unaware as to what that is where you progressively get slower throughout the race. Now the ideal way, generally speaking, to run a race is to negative split it, where you start off slower and build into it and end quick. But there's just no chance I'm going to be doing that over the marathon distance. Maybe over the shorter distances I can do that. Marathon, no chance. But with that being said, despite the positive split that we'd planned, by the 37km mark the wheels were really coming off and I was unable to hit the paces that my Garmin was telling me to hit in each kilometre. Wasn't miles off it, but we were talking like 20 seconds slower than I needed to be for them last 5 kilometres. But I was determined not to stop, so throughout the entire race I didn't stop and walk once because I knew if I did my legs would seize up. I'd started to feel a bit of cramp incoming. It hadn't actually started cramping, but it was on the verge of it in my hamstrings, but mainly my quads. I knew if I pulled over to stop and stretch, that was just, I'd be walking and running again for the rest of it, which I didn't want to do. I wanted to cling on for as long as I could, so I just slowed my pace down a bit, which meant that last 5k just felt like it was never ending. It was pretty brutal, and I think that happens regardless of what fitness level you're at. I'm sure even the elites are clinging on for dear life in them last 5 kilometers because nothing can prepare you physically or mentally for that part of the race. It's just very difficult.
Oh, last 2k, quads are about to implode on me.
When every fibre of your being wants to just stop and walk for a minute, which is why I was so gassed to cling on the entire way round without stopping, because it's not easy to do that. And with that said, the last 5k was slower than I needed to go to hit my 350 goal. It took me 29 minutes and 30 seconds, I think, to do that last 5k. So yeah, we had pulled it back quite a bit and I ended up with a overall time of just shy of what I wanted to hit. Three hours, 51 minutes and 57 seconds.
Félicitations, vous le faites. Vous l'avez fait. Good job, you've done it.
Bon, du coup, t'auras dit.
Oh, my legs.
Morning. It is now Monday, the day after the marathon. I had a decent night's sleep last night, but my legs still do feel like I've run a marathon. My quads in particular are very, very tender, and so are my knees. The recovery is the name of the game from now until the next week or so. I'm just going to take it super easy, but yeah, I'm still so gassed with how yesterday went. Honestly, it's just, I felt quite a lot of pressure going into it just because I'd stuck so much time down in the training that if it went wrong, I'd have been a bit disappointed, is the truth. But good experience, and the rest of the day I am just going to prioritise recovery. Jade, my mum and dad have gone touristing around, but I've just not got the energy for it. I feel really low on energy. So I'm just going to chill, relax for a bit, and then we're going to head to our hotel for the night, and we are flying back tomorrow morning back to Manchester to resume life as usual. So I think I'm going to end the video now. I'm not going to be doing much else from now until I get home, so nothing really worth documenting. So we'll call it a day there. Nice one if you've watched this far. Good luck if you're running a marathon yourself. I know it is marathon season. A lot of people have got Manchester, London, and a few others coming up, Boston, etc. So yeah, keep smashing it, and I will see you in the next one.